Hello, my name is Diane Ross. I am the Education Development Manager here at Reality Works. And today I want to talk to you about the driving force behind innovation, and it is skills based in CTE. So we're really going to focus today on skills and skills based CTE. Who is Reality Works? This is part of the agenda today. We're going to talk who we are. What does skills-based really mean? Where can I look for innovation trends in the labor force? When will I become the driving force in my CTE program? Why is innovation so important to CTE? And how can I make this change? And I think that this is really the driving point, is how you can make this change. So Reality Works, our simulation technology has been used around the world for more than 20 years, since the creation of the Real Care Baby Infant Simulator back in the 90s. Today, we're in 62% of school districts in the US and 90 countries around the world. We strive to partner with educators and educational leaders, and our company president is a board member of the Association for Career and Technical Education, as well as the chair of the Industry Workforce Needs Coalition. So we're very in tune with the CTE sector. Our products are developed with hands-on learning in mind, from our Real Care Baby and Total Parenting Experience to our new welding and agriculture programs and our award-winning health science innovative products. We help teachers create lasting educational and experiential learning experiences. Remember, a NASA engineer invented the first Real Care Baby with his wife, who was a fax teacher. This started back in 1994, and Baby has come a long way since then. So what does skills-based really mean? We know what skills are, and we know what CTE is, but how should skills be used in the CTE classroom? What do they look like? So it used to be that skills-based was teaching a student how to achieve the correct answer in the practice that we use. So they use a skill, and then it would be practiced in the correct way. It would be used in the correct way in the practice of whatever that skill is. But perhaps it should be teaching a student how to achieve the correct answer, but to fully understand why each skill is correctly performed this way. So to understand each individual skill that makes up a bigger skill. And so let's say that you're a welder and you're asked to complete a specific weld that's called on for a specific project. You're given a sheet that looks like this, and it's called a welding procedures specification sheet, or WPS, to complete the weld. In case you don't know, a WPS is a formal written document describing standard welding procedures, and it's the blueprint for how to complete the weld for a specific task, like when you're building something. They're created by professionals who have actually structurally designed what you're going to weld. So you get something that looks like this. And it's like a recipe for welders. It's going to tell you what equipment you need, what type metal. It's going to give you step-by-step instructions. It's been tested and certified as the proper procedure for completing this weld. Let's say you follow the instructions on the WPS completely, but at the end, you have a terrible weld. You take this back to your employer and say, I followed this to the specifications, but it's an awful weld. The weld doesn't pass inspection. It fails, you fail. Where did you go wrong? Was it your skill? Did you follow the instructions of the WPS? This sounds like a problem likely caused by an issue with a specific skill that the welder doesn't understand, or they just skip the critical step. We think of skills as a collective entity, but skills are separate, intricate, and dependent on each other. If we don't master a specific skill and move on to the next one that is dependent on the previous, we're destined to fail and probably won't know why. So we look at it. Collective skills are dependent on the quality of interaction. That's a collection of the skills. So we're doing several things at once. And distributed skills are practiced individually to gain mastery one by one. We don't always look at skills as individuals, but focus more on the collective. And we see it as one thing. What if we broke this down into distributed skills so that we can properly and accurately master the collective skill? That way, we can see how these skills fit into the overall. Look at each piece and part to understand how they properly fit together to make something right every time. How would this look in welding, for instance? This is a good example. The welding student practices a welding skill individually or distributed skills focused on just one skill necessary to successfully draw a proper bead, but focuses on just one of the skills required to draw the bead, like speed. The student is given immediate feedback with the green plus sign that indicates they need to speed up. The example of collective skills is when the student displays proper skill in multiple areas, including speed, arc distance, work angle, travel angle, and straightness all at the same time. And in this case, given the golden gun that shows they have successfully demonstrated proper collective skill. Then we have to translate those specific distributed skills into the actual welding booth so that they become the collective skills needed to complete a great weld. A great weld is one that penetrates the root and satisfies the WPS or the production of the product, such as a bridge or a building. The student is seeing the guides in the helmet as they weld, giving them that extra reinforcement to build skill and proper form. Let's break this down even more. You might have a welding simulation lab where students learn the basics of welding and focus on those distributive skills such as work angle, travel angle, arc to plate distance, straightness, and speed. They practice these until they progress from basic to intermediate to advanced, which might indicate that they're ready to enter the welding booth. They have that basic understanding of the skills needed to weld. They're prepared to start welding. The teacher can also have one system connected to an overhead projector for instruction on proper form so the whole class can see at the same time in real time. So it can be used effectively as an instructional device. Then they enter the welding booth using your welding machines with our live product, which has guidance in the helmet that reinforces the skills that they learned in the simulation back in the classroom. As the student welds, they'll see how to improve their weld or know they are in proper form as they're welding. This eliminates the need for the instructor to be there all the time watching. Students can be self-directed in this regard. They're building skill without a teacher right there all the time. Then, when they complete the weld, instead of taking the piece to the teacher to evaluate, they can do a self-analysis by comparing their weld to common weld defects or a good weld in our weld defects kit. This also helps the teacher to spend time where needed rather than performing evaluations that teachers can complete, or rather that students can complete themselves. Welding has traditionally been taught in a very dirty and scattered environment. Many teachers scramble to find scrap metal, rods, and even borrow old welding machines. But today's welding program includes simulations so that students can learn in the classroom the proper terms, procedures, and form before they enter the welding booth. This type of welding program allows students to build skill faster, and they become better welders overall by being allowed to see and focus on each individual skill and to know and understand how one skill can affect the whole weld. It's the collection of those skills that affect the whole weld and the integrity of those welds. What about in agriculture? How does innovation look? Animal science has historically been focused on a barn, a field, animals on that farm, but today farms should be a driving force in the economy from the perspective of providing nutritious foods for our bodies and providing an income for farmers. But farming is at a crucial place. We have allowed fast food processing to replace some of the practices that gives us better quality of food, and that's been at a cost. Let's look at the price of beef, or specifically cattle prices. Look back over the past 20 years at how cattle prices have changed. Starting in 2011, prices went over $110 a head. The pandemic has caused the rate of growth in prices by creating labor issues, transportation concerns, and others. You've seen this in the news. But the increase in prices have not gone to the farmers, but it's caught in a middleman type situation that farmers claim is causing consumers to pay more, but not going into the pockets, like I said, of the farmers. In fact, if we compare how much of the average family spent on food in 1950, let's say, to the average they spend today, so over the last 71 years, percentage of your total income, no matter what that income is, we're doing it by percentage. In 1950, the average family spent 35% of their income on food. That's what they consumed. Today, we spend on average 10%. What does that mean to the farmer, and what happened to cause this? The farmer is making far less money, and farms have, for the most part, become large factories that produce cattle and produce food. This practice has caused our food to become more processed. Our cattle are filled with antibiotics and pesticides to the point that their waste no longer enriches the soil. In fact, it can make the soil unusable, not suitable for growing food, not suitable for feeding animals. We now enrich the soil with fertilizers and practices that cause our plant-based foods to be less nutrient-based or good for us to eat. There is a nationwide push in some states already that embrace sustained agriculture. This is where you, as a CTE administrator or teacher, have a very vital role. Sustained agriculture depends on a new view of how our food is created and how it's grown. The old ways of farming have come back into popularity as more of us demand a better food source. Students need to understand the science behind growing vegetables, from crop rotation to the types of nutrients that are safe to the role of farm animals in better preparing soil and providing a nutritious food source for the animals that produce our meats. Preparing students to take on a bigger role in farming that reduces costs by increasing efficiency is key. Often learning at a farm is not convenient or accessible for students, especially now during the heat of the pandemic. Teachers have to be more innovative in how they offer specific instruction in skilled areas such as cattle breeding and caring for animals. This affects your local communities by allowing farmers to sell directly to your local grocers and restaurants. What this means is there will be a local demand, and the farmer has to be very skilled at inseminating, birthing, caring for the cattle. This is where what you do is vital to both the economy in general and to your community. We work to prepare students for what they're going to see and face on the farm and in farming situations. This shows you what a 21st century simulation classroom might look like for animal science. Instead of bins of animal body parts soaking in formaldehyde, students can access and see animals in their true form. Students can practice birthing a calf and determining if the calf is in distress. They can practice artificial insemination. Students can also practice the ruminant and even practice giving a cow an injection. Many times being on a farm is difficult. When the farmer has time for you, you're learning something else. When you want to learn or want to return to the ruminant and use the butcher's cut a few weeks ago, well, that time has expired. Our products are designed to allow students to experience and understand skills such as cattle and pig breeding, caring for a cow, birthing process to produce and maintain healthy animals, and caring for a calf. This type of innovation drove us to create simulations that allow future farmers or ag students to learn the intricacies of cattle breeding, birthing using high-tech equipment to calf care. Let me show you. Many times you might take your students to a farm where they watch artificial insemination. They might get a chance to try it, but it would be under the guided hand of the farmer, and you might not have set them up with pictures or videos in the way that they would really understand what they're doing. By using simulation, you can teach students those distributed skills. Remember, practice individually so that they better understand the whole skill. Students get to see the cow from the inside out, then practice the delicate skill of insemination before seeing it on a real cow. Also, students understand why insemination is used to increase the integrity of the herd. Then the birthing process is very important and delicate time. Students get the hands-on learning with a true-to-life birthing simulator that includes learning how to read an ultrasound specific to cows and the most common things that can go wrong or go right in that process. And our one-of-a-kind calf simulator allows the student to learn how to care for a calf from feeding to complicated issues calves can have, and learn how to decrease the mortality rate for young calves. What about the food that we grow? Schools are generally in session during the non-growing season. Reality Works has created 3 hydroponic solutions that can be used for a culinary classroom or for an ag classroom. First, our hydroponics lab was created to allow students to experiment with plant nutrients and with growing overall and see the effects on different nutrients, lighting, and water. They learn to grow food that is healthy for us. Our growing system is our own unique product that takes up smaller space in the classroom, but is low maintenance with high producing abilities with our system of water flow. Our mini hydroponic system allows students to work in this desktop system to practice deep water culture, ebb and flow, and microgreen growing. Where can I look for innovative trends in the labor force? Reality Works is focused on innovation, and we create only products that fit the needs of the labor force. We focus on those fine skills needed within each career cluster. We look at the labor market and identify areas that have a specific need, such as welders or certified nursing assistants. We found there was a huge skills gap when it comes to performing and reading an ECG. You might have had one in your doctor's office at some point. Did you notice that the nurse, probably not the doctor, performed the test? They strapped wires to your chest. They read the squiggly lines that appeared. It was the nurse who would first see how your heart was performing and would be the one to notify the doctor of issues by indicating the problem areas. One of the biggest issues with teaching ECG in high school with real ECG machines was that most students don't have heart issues. And if they did, all of a sudden their medical issue was known to the entire class. The other issue was having students undress in class to have the wires connected to their chests. Imagine that teenage problem with peers. Using simulation allows students to learn in a safe environment, and it allows them to focus on the skills at hand and avoid the social mishaps. This is a great example of using labor force data to meet a driving demand for high paying, high demand jobs that require high skills. The labor force demand should be driving what courses you're offering to students, just like the direction of agriculture education moving toward a more sustainable base, so is healthcare. Sometimes schools offer courses that meet the credentials and needs of the teachers who might be used to teaching something that leads to very few jobs or jobs with dead-end careers. Being focused on labor demand should drive what you offer in your CTE programs, and offering programs that enhance the workforce is the ultimate goal. We are in unprecedented times when it comes to healthcare and medical research. Innovations in longevity or the biology of aging are leading us toward making our whole bodies healthier for a longer period of time. Some researchers say we're on the verge of a revelation to treat old age as a disease. By doing this, they say, we can live longer and healthier lives. This means we have to have access to healthcare workers who can identify and see changes that can be reversed in the not too distant future. So how do we get our students there? We have to focus on those skills. Remember that we discussed before the distributive skills that translate into the collective skills. And we have to listen to our students so they can be successful. Many students, according to medical experts, feel that they're not trained adequately in history taking, physical examination, diagnosis, and management. And medical simulation has been proposed as a technique to bridge this educational gap. In other areas of medical training, simulation has been demonstrated to lead to improvements in medical knowledge, comfort in procedures, and improvements in performance during retesting in simulated scenarios. Simulation has also been shown to be a reliable tool for assessing learners and for teaching topics such as teamwork and communication. So when will you become the driving force? I recently participated in the Wall Street Journal's panel on the future of health. In it, experts and doctors explained how healthcare is changing, not just because of the worldwide pandemic, but because of advances in technology. Technology doesn't replace knowledge and skills. In fact, it does the opposite. Your students will be required to know more and have a deeper understanding of the procedures they will be required to perform. They won't be just strapping on a device that takes your blood pressure, for instance. They will need to understand and know if your blood pressure is being affected by age, prescriptions, or disease. And most importantly, they need to know what to do with that data and that information. It's really your charge to evaluate your CTE programs to make sure that skills are not only being addressed, but are actually learned in distributive form, meaning they're learned singularly and understood, then combined with other skills to make up the collective that creates mastery. Each skill learned needs to be assessed in real time, giving that student the positive feedback they need to move on. You are seeing our newest innovation, the auscultation trainer. We have schools that are using this because they are challenged to get kids into clinicals. With this simulator, students learn to recognize sounds in the bowel, lungs, and heart while practicing realistic scenarios just as they would face in the real world. This way, they are better prepared when they touch real patients and know what to expect. Their learning is accelerated. They have mastered the smaller skills to become adept in the real world and toward certification. We look at the needed healthcare competencies and place them into a skills lab so that students can practice the knowledge, the skills, the behaviors in a simulated clinical setting. This is what a simulated classroom might look like. This diagram shows you. This is what a skills lab might look like that's fitted with simulations, allowing students to actually experience conditions such as what it's like to have had a stroke, let's say. What happens when a patient has diabetes? Why foot care is so important. If a patient is bedridden, what does a pressure injury look like and how do you treat it, depending on the stage of the bed sore? Blood pressure, we talked a little about this, but every time a student takes another student's blood pressure, they're causing pressure to the student's arm, making it difficult to repeat this skill over and over. Plus, there could be privacy issues if another student has a blood pressure issue. Using simulation allows the student to practice, then assessed on a variety of blood pressure results, and it allows the student to fully understand the skill involved in taking blood pressure. Geriatric mannequins give students the experience of working as a certified nursing assistant with the elderly, from bathing to moving to even performing CPR on another human being. We know that the future student, the future health worker, needs to understand the science behind the technology and the science behind the skills while experiencing clinical and patient care, and to understand the relationship between the digital science and the medical science of healthcare. The goal here is to allow students to experience real life situations in a safe learning environment. So why is innovation important to CTE? Innovation drives economic growth. In any labor market and labor force, money is the factor. Profitability means higher pay and rewards for communities. People can buy houses, kids can go to schools with innovative learning resources. People are healthier because they have safer food sources and access to better health care. CTE creates healthy communities. Your programs you offer help to keep your local economy going by providing CNAs, for instance, to take care of your elderly, welders who work in your local manufacturing companies, farmers to grow your food, just to name a few. Without CTE, communities may go without needed resources, such as fresh vegetables grown. Many schools actually produce their own vegetables for their schools or sell them to farmers markets or to restaurants in their community. Students are not just producing food, but learning how plants grow and how they nourish our bodies and other living things. So here's the dangling question: how can I make this change? Number one, focus on what needs you have in your community. Go to your local workforce board, and I know you do this now, but spend more time there mulling over the data yourself. Talk to employers, get true insight into the specific skills they're seeking, or even the specific skills that students are lacking that are coming to them to get jobs. Truly evaluate your own programs. Are you teaching those skills to the degree that employers need? Observe teachers as they work with all kinds of students. Even if you are a teacher, observe other teachers. Are they focused on the collective skills dependent on the quality of interactions of skills? Remember, that's what collective skills is. Or are they more focused on those distributive skills, everything together that needs to master before they move to the collective? Where are they focusing? Are they focusing on those little small skills to make sure everything is perfect? Seek hands-on learning resources that encompass the distributive skills for teachers to use with their students. Use the CTE evaluation tool available to you, such as this one. There are a total of about 26 different components to your CTE program by category. You need to have a course sequence, syllabus, all the way to technology, professional development, size, scope, and sequence. Evaluate what's being done at each of these stages. Integrate simulation to better prepare students for the real thing. It will decrease the time for these students to master these vital skills. Seek professional development so that teachers understand the uses of simulation and value its role in modern skills training. In this evaluation, inside of the size, scope, and sequence here, there's a part called quality. This is where I'd like to focus on the quality part and how it looks now and what you'd like for it to look like in the future. Quality is the measure of how successful each program is able to teach all enrolled students workplace standards, competencies, and skills necessary for them to practice careers within their chosen field after graduation. Don't take this part for granted. Continue to evaluate whether your courses are meeting the standards necessary for these students to carry on successful careers right there in your community. Let's break this down even more. Workplace standards. These could be different from state to state, but these are the standards that might exist today. Remember, the goal here is to prepare students for the future so they can climb in their careers. Competencies is what they do in the course today. We want the student to be able not only to perform the skill, but to deeply understand why they're doing it and what is going on within the patient, the animal, the plant, or the metal, whatever they're doing. Then there's the actual skill or the doing part. How many times are they able to practice the skill? Are your students practicing, let's say, blood pressure on each other? If so, are they are probably getting the same results over and over, and they're not learning about recognizing readings that are out of range. In something like welding, they might be practicing a pad weld over and over, getting the muscle memory, but if their form is not correct, they are building the skills in the wrong way, and it might not be caught by the teacher in time. Students, as we know, like that immediate feedback. Am I doing this right? How do I correct myself? Simulation will help these students build that necessary skill. Some of the drawbacks to new ways is that the teacher may not be receptive to simulated learning because they didn't learn that way. Remember, we're focused on what the student needs, where their career is headed, new technologies that may not exist today, getting those students prepared for that future. The future will look a whole lot different than what we're seeing today. Strides in healthcare, for instance, is changing every day. Students need to have the specific skills necessary to adapt. The technology may change, but the science will need to be strongly enforced now. So what's next? What do I do now? I want you now to do 3 things. These are the 3 things I want you to do. I want you to start, stop, and continue. I want you to think about, grab a pen and paper right now, open your notes app on your device, time for you to reflect on your classroom, your program, and most importantly, your students, or even your teachers. What one thing are you going to start doing? Perhaps something you saw here today, something you saw this week or read. I want you to write that down. So what is it you're going to start doing today? Take a few seconds and write that down. Then write down one thing you're going to stop doing. This might be stop lecturing most of your instructional time, spend more time doing hands-on things, or promoting this to a teacher. What is it that you are going to stop doing that you think you need to stop doing in your program? And then what one thing will you continue doing? This might be continue working with my local workforce board to find more information about local needs from employers, or continue getting their feedback. And then once you do that, would you email these to me? I am interested to know what your stop, start, or your start, stop, and continue modes are. I want to hear your thoughts. As you think about your current methods of classroom instruction, what are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? And what are you going to keep doing to innovate your programs? Like I said, take a few minutes, either share your thoughts in the chat or write them down for personal reflection. And if you would, send them to me. I would love to read them. They can have 1 to 3 bullets for each one. They don't have to be one thing, and you don't have to do it right now. And here's my email. Send me your thoughts. I'm at diane.ross@realityworks.com. Again, I'm the Education Development Manager for RealityWorks. I appreciate your time today. Wondering if anybody has any questions.